The underground market smelled of smoke, sweat, and fear. Chains rattled as dozens of alien captives sat behind iron bars, waiting for someone to claim them. Buyers walked past, laughing, pointing, bargaining for bodies as if they were no more than cattle. In the corner, half hidden in shadow, a tall alien woman knelt with her hands bound. Her skin was pale gray, her hair long and tangled, her body scarred but strong. She lifted her head when a human man entered. Her eyes, sharp and burning, locked on him. The man walked slowly between the cages, pretending not to notice her stare. He had come only to see what was sold, not to buy. Yet her gaze followed him, hard and unbroken. A group of traders mocked her as he passed. That one? Worthless, one jeered. Her kind was broken in the last war. No man will pay for her. Another laughed, adding, She smells of battle and dirt. Who would keep her near? The woman's lips trembled, not with shame, but with anger. Suddenly, her voice rang out, loud enough to silence the mockery. My body is strong, human. I'll give you strong children. The room fell silent. The man froze where he stood. Buyers turned their heads in shock, some bursting into cruel laughter. Listen to her, one of them shouted. Begging like a beast for a master. Another spat on the ground, sneering. Strong children from her? She's half dead. But the human didn't laugh. He turned to face her fully, eyes narrowing. She knelt, her back straight despite the heavy chains, staring directly at him. Her words had not been soft or desperate. They were sharp, filled with pride, as if she challenged him to test them. He could see the fire in her even through the scars. The trader slammed his cane against the bars. 50 credits for the warrior trash. No less. She eats too much and fights too hard. Dangerous stock. 10, someone said mockingly from the crowd. She'll be dead before next week. The human still said nothing. He stepped closer, studying her. She did not look away. Her jaw tightened as if daring him to walk past like the others. He noticed the muscles in her arms, the marks of old battles carved into her skin, the stubborn strength that refused to bow even in chains. 20, the man finally said. The trader snarled. She's worth more than that. The crowd jeered. Not even worth 2. Let the fool waste his money. The woman's eyes widened just slightly. She leaned forward, speaking again, her voice softer now, but still firm. Buy me, human. You will not regret it. My body is not broken. I can fight. I can work. I can give you children who will never be weak. Something in her words struck the man deeper than he expected. It wasn't just survival. It wasn't empty pleading. It was a vow. 30, the man said. The trader hesitated. No one else bid. The market had gone quiet. Some whispered, wondering why a human would bother with her at all. 30, the trader spat. Fine. Take her. She's yours. Keys rattled. Chains fell. The woman stumbled as she was pulled from the cage, but she caught herself quickly, standing tall, taller than the man who had bought her. For a moment she looked down at him, her eyes unreadable, before lowering her head just slightly in acknowledgement. The man signed the papers, ignoring the stares around him. He wrapped a cloak around her shoulders, covering her chains and scars from the crowd. Together they stepped into the night air, leaving the market's foul stench behind. But as they walked, he could still hear her words echo in his head. My body is strong. Human, I'll give you strong children. Why had she said it? Was it a desperate lie to escape chains, or a promise of something more dangerous, something powerful waiting to be unleashed? The human glanced at her from the corner of his eye. She walked beside him, silent now, but every step carried strength, defiance, and something unbroken that no cage could kill. He realized he had not just bought a captive. He had bought into a mystery, one that could change everything. The night was quiet, but his thoughts were loud. What had he brought home? A broken slave or a storm waiting to rise? The small shelter was quiet except for the crackling fire. The human poured water into a metal cup and handed it to the alien woman. She took it with both hands, drinking slowly, her chains clinking against the cup. Her eyes never left him, sharp and searching. He sat across from her, unsure if she was truly a prisoner or something far more dangerous. You didn't laugh, she said suddenly, her voice low. When I spoke of children, the others laughed. You didn't. He studied her face. Why did you say it? Her grip on the cup tightened. Because it is true. My body is strong. My people are warriors. Our blood does not weaken. I can fight beside you. I can work harder than your men, and if you wish, I can give you children who will be stronger than both of us. The human leaned back against the wall. his brow furrowed. That's not how humans choose. We don't buy wives. Her lips curved into a bitter smile. You bought me. That is choice enough. The firelight showed the scars along her arms, long, deep marks that could only come from battle. She saw his eyes move and spoke again. These are not shame. Each one is a story. I was born to fight, but my own betrayed me. They sold me when I would not bow. Her voice trembled, but she straightened her back, her pride unbroken. Better to be sold than to kneel. He fell silent, watching the flames dance. She leaned forward slightly. Test me, human. Give me work. Put a blade in my hand. You will see what I am. He almost laughed at her boldness, but there was no weakness in her tone. Instead, he stood, walked to a wooden crate near the door, and dragged it closer. Lift it. Her chains clinked as she rose. She stepped to the crate, bent, and lifted it with ease, holding it above her head as if it weighed nothing. The human's eyes widened. She lowered it gently back to the ground, her breathing steady. You see? She said. Not broken, not weak. But before he could answer, her body swayed. Her knees buckled, and she dropped to the floor, trembling. He rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. The firelight showed the truth. Her scars were not healed. Deep wounds still burned across her back, wrapped in rough bandages soaked with blood. You're hurt, he said, lowering her gently. I am alive, she whispered. Her lips curved in a stubborn smile. That is enough. He shook his head, fetching clean cloth and water. She flinched at his touch but did not pull away as he peeled back the bloody bandages. Her skin was torn, her flesh raw, yet she endured in silence, her jaw clenched. As he pressed the cloth to her wounds, she finally spoke, her voice breaking through the pain. Do you know why I said those words? I'll give you strong children, because strength is the only value my people respect. If I cannot fight, I can still pass strength on. That is survival. The human paused, staring at her. The fire crackled, shadows moving across her face. She looked at him with fierce, unwavering eyes, as if daring him to reject her truth. He said nothing. He only tightened the bandage around her wounds, his hands firm but careful. She closed her eyes, breathing heavily, then whispered, You think I am desperate. I am not. I am offering you what no other can. Her voice faded as exhaustion took her, and she slumped against his shoulder. For the first time since he saw her in the market, she looked fragile, her fire dimmed but not gone. He laid her down beside the fire, covering her with his own cloak. He sat awake long into the night, listening to her steady breathing. Her words returned again and again in his mind. Was she truly bargaining for survival, or was she giving him a promise that could bind their fates together? The flames burned low, and the silence around them grew heavy. He knew one thing for certain. Whatever she was not ordinary, and whatever choice he made next would change both their lives forever. Morning light filtered through the cracks of the shelter. The human woke to the sound of chains scraping against the floor. The alien woman was already on her feet, her tall frame casting a shadow across the room. Despite her wounds, she stood with a straight back, refusing to look weak. He rose quickly, expecting her to fall again, but instead she lifted a heavy barrel and carried it to the corner without a word. You shouldn't, he said. Her eyes narrowed. You told me to prove myself. I will not lie in bed like a dying animal. He almost argued, but her stubborn fire stopped him. She moved with strength, though every motion sent a tremor through her arms. She stacked crates, gathered firewood, even knelt to patch the cracks in the floor with rough cloth. Sweat ran down her scarred skin, but she never slowed. At noon, her body betrayed her. She faltered, dropping to one knee. He rushed to her side, but she shoved him away. Do not touch me. I am not weak. You're bleeding, he said firmly. Sit down before you kill yourself. Her chest rose and fell with sharp breaths, but at last she obeyed, collapsing against the wall. He brought water, pressing it into her hands. She drank greedily, then wiped her mouth with the back of her wrist. You care too much, she said bitterly. In my world, no one stops for the wounded. The weak are left behind. He crouched in front of her, meeting her piercing gaze. Then your world is broken. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. For the first time, she looked uncertain. He lifted her arm gently, ignoring her flinch, and examined the bandages he had tied the night before. Blood had seeped through. He cleaned and wrapped them again, his hands steady. She watched in silence, her jaw tight, her eyes burning with emotions she didn't understand. When he finished, he tried to pull away, but she caught his wrist. "Why?" she demanded. "Why would you do this? I am nothing to you. A prisoner, a bargain." He hesitated, then answered quietly, "Because no one deserves to be left behind." Her hand lingered on his wrist for a moment before she let go. She turned her face away, but her voice softened. "You are not like the others." That night, the fire glowed low as she sat close, her chains rattling softly. She stared at the flames, her voice calm, almost distant. "When I said I would give you children, you thought it was only desperation. But it was not only that. My people value strength above all else. A child born of human and warrior blood would be feared and respected. Even I do not know if such a thing is possible. But if it is." Her voice trailed off, heavy with meaning. The human said nothing. The thought unsettled him, yet her conviction was impossible to ignore. She turned her head, looking at him through the firelight. Her eyes no longer held only defiance. There was something else there, something fragile beneath the strength. Suddenly, a sound outside shattered the silence. The human reached for his weapon. The woman tensed, rising to her feet despite the pain in her body. Shadows moved beyond the door, rough voices whispering in the dark. She stepped forward, chains dragging across the floor, her voice low but steady. "If they come for me, do not protect me. I will fight." The human tightened his grip on the blade, his heart pounding. He glanced at her tall figure in the firelight, scarred, wounded, yet unbroken. She was more than a captive now. She was a storm waiting for release, and the storm was about to break. The door rattled as fists pounded against the wood. Rough voices shouted from outside, demanding the human hand over the alien woman. She stood near the fire, chains still clinking with every breath, her eyes blazing with defiance. He raised a finger, signaling for her to stay back, but she shook her head, her voice low and fierce. "They came for me. If I hide, I am already dead." The human stepped to the door, blade ready. It cracked open, and a group of men pushed their way inside, their faces twisted with greed. The leader smirked when he saw her. "So it's true. You took the warrior slave. She belongs to us. Step aside." The human didn't move. His stance made it clear he would not surrender her. The intruders laughed, amused at his stubbornness. "One man against us? You'll die trying." Before he could answer, the alien woman stepped forward, her tall frame filling the room. She tugged at her chains, snapping one loose with a strength that silenced the intruders. The broken link hit the floor with a heavy clang. "If you want me," she growled, "then take me." The men hesitated, unease flickering in their eyes. The leader barked an order, and two rushed forward. She moved faster. With a roar, she struck, her chained wrists slamming into the first man's chest, sending him sprawling into the fire. The second swung a knife, but she twisted, the blade only grazing her arm before she crushed his wrist in her grip. The human joined the fight, his blade flashing. Together they moved like two sides of the same storm, her raw power and his sharp precision. The small shelter shook with the struggle, furniture splintering, firelight throwing wild shadows across the walls. Blood spilled on the floor. When the last man fled into the night, clutching his broken arm, the shelter was silent except for the sound of their breathing. The human lowered his blade, turning to her. She stood in the middle of the room, chains hanging loose, blood dripping from fresh wounds, her chest rising and falling like a warrior after battle. Her eyes burned with triumph, but there was something else too, something softer, hidden deep. "You fought beside me," she said quietly, almost in disbelief. "Not over me, not against me, beside me." He nodded, wiping blood from his cheek. "I don't own you. We fight together or not at all." For a long moment she stared at him, her face unreadable. Then her lips curved into the faintest smile, one filled with both pride and sorrow. "Perhaps," she whispered, "I chose the right human after all." The fire crackled between them, but the bond forged in battle was stronger than flame. She was no longer just a captive. She was something far more dangerous. An ally, a partner, and a mystery he could no longer ignore. The days after the fight were strangely calm. The human repaired the broken furniture, replaced the door, and cleaned the bloodstains from the floor. The alien woman moved through the shelter like a shadow, her chains now cut shorter, no longer binding her every step. She worked beside him, lifting heavy beams, fetching water, splitting logs. Her wounds still burned, yet she never complained. One evening, as the fire warmed the room, she sat across from him, her eyes fixed on the flames. "Do you regret buying me?" she asked suddenly. He looked up from sharpening his blade. "No." Her lips pressed into a line. "Others would. To them I am only trouble, a beast too wild to tame. Even my own people thought so." "You're not a beast," he said firmly. She tilted her head, studying him. The firelight flickered against her scarred face, softening it. After a moment of silence, she spoke again, her voice steady but filled with something deeper. "When I said I could give you strong children, I meant it. I was not only speaking of survival, I was offering you a future, blood tied to strength that even war cannot erase." He froze, meeting her unblinking gaze. There was no desperation now, no bargaining. Her words carried conviction, as if she truly believed their lives could be bound together. He set the blade aside. "Why me?" She leaned closer, the firelight glinting in her eyes. "Because you did not laugh, because you treated me as more than chains and scars, because you stood with me when others would have sold me again. My people chose power over honor. You chose something different." Silence stretched between them. He tried to find words, but none came. She broke it with a sound that startled him. A soft laugh, rough, unpracticed, but real. "Do not look so afraid, human. I do not demand you. I only tell you what I see." Later, when he lay near the fire, half asleep, he felt her presence move closer. The faint weight of her hand rested on his arm, hesitant yet deliberate. Her voice came in a whisper, so soft it almost vanished in the crackle of the flames. "You gave me back more than freedom. You gave me worth again." She pulled her hand away quickly, retreating to her corner, but the human lay awake long after, staring at the ceiling, her words circling in his mind. The captive who once spoke of children as a bargain now spoke of them as something more, a bond neither of them had expected. Outside, the night was quiet, but inside, something unseen had shifted. The air between them carried a weight heavier than chains and a promise stronger than any vow. The quiet did not last. Word of the failed raid spread, and soon more dangerous hunters came searching. The human heard whispers in the village, slavers, mercenaries, men who would not stop until the alien woman was dragged back in chains or dead. He packed supplies in silence, his mind heavy with the choice he had made the night he bought her. She stood by the doorway, arms crossed, her sharp eyes watching him. "You mean to run," she said flatly. He didn't deny it. "If we stay, they'll kill us both." Her jaw tightened. "Then we run together." By dusk, they left the shelter behind, walking into the wilderness where cold winds cut across barren hills. The human struggled under the weight of supplies, but she carried her share with ease, her long strides unbroken. When night fell, they built a fire beneath a rocky cliff. The flames cast their shadows high against the stone. As he warmed his hands, he noticed her watching him again. She spoke softly, but her voice carried strength even in the wind. "Do you still wonder why I said those words in the market?" He met her gaze, but stayed silent. "I meant them more than ever now," she continued. "Look around you. The world will not spare us. To survive, we must be more than two fugitives. We must become something greater. Alone we are hunted. Together." She paused, her eyes burning with fierce certainty. "Together we could be the beginning of a future neither your kind nor mine expects." Before he could answer, a sharp crack echoed from the darkness. The human leapt to his feet, drawing his blade. Figures moved between the rocks, shadows creeping closer. The alien woman rose as well, her body tense, her scars glowing red in the firelight. She glanced at him, her voice calm despite the danger. "Stay close. Tonight they will see what it means to chase a warrior." The ambush came swift. Men rushed from the dark with chains and spears. She met them head-on, roaring as she struck, her strength hurling one to the ground. The human fought at her side, steel flashing, his movements fast and precise. Together they moved through the chaos as if their bodies already knew each other's rhythm. But the numbers were against them. Blood slicked the rocks, and the human stumbled, a cut burning across his side. Before another blade could fall, she caught him in her arms, lifting him with one arm while her other smashed an attacker aside. "You see now," she shouted through the clash, "why I said I am strong. I will carry you even when you fall." She dragged him up the rocks, fighting with fury as arrows cracked against stone. They vanished into the night, their pursuers' shouts fading behind them. When at last they collapsed in the shelter of a cave, her body shook with exhaustion, but her eyes still burned bright. The human pressed his wound, looking at her through ragged breaths. She leaned close, her face shadowed but unyielding. I told you the truth. My body is strong, human, strong enough to fight, strong enough to carry, strong enough to build a life that no chain can break. Her words rang in the cave, heavier than the silence that followed. He realized then that she was not only fighting for freedom, she was fighting for a bond that neither of them could deny. The cave was damp, the fire nothing more than a faint glow against the stone. The human sat with his back to the wall, pressing a cloth to his wound. The alien woman knelt before him, her scarred hands steady as she tightened the bandage. Her eyes lifted once, meeting his, and for a moment the silence between them felt heavier than the chains she once wore. Outside, distant voices echoed in the night. Their hunters had not given up. The woman's body tensed, her instincts sharp, but she did not rise. Instead, she spoke in a low voice, words like iron against the cold. If they break through, I will give myself. They want me, not you. You can live if I stay behind. He caught her wrist, his grip weak but unyielding. No, you don't decide that for me. Her eyes narrowed, confusion flashing there. No one had ever defied her sacrifice before. She had expected him to accept, to let her fight alone, but his gaze burned steady, even through pain. The sound outside grew louder. Rocks shifted, boots scraped the ground. The human forced himself to his feet, leaning on the cave wall for balance. She rose too, her tall frame towering beside him. Chains still clinked softly at her wrists, though they no longer bound her spirit. The first enemy stepped into the cave mouth. Without hesitation, she surged forward, her roar echoing off the stone. The human followed, blade in hand, his strike swift and certain. They fought back to back, every movement flowing as though they had trained together their whole lives. The cave shook with the clash of steel and the cries of dying men. At the height of the chaos, the leader of the hunters charged, spear aimed at the human's chest. She saw it and threw herself in front, the spear plunging deep into her side. Her cry shook the walls, but she held the shaft tight, wrenching it free with brutal strength before striking the leader down with her chains. The human caught her as she staggered, blood warm against his hands. Her eyes fluttered, but her voice was steady, even as it weakened. Do you see now? I told you, my body is strong. Strong enough to fight, strong enough to bleed, strong enough to stand between death and you. No, he said, his voice raw. Not just strong for war, strong for life. She blinked, stunned by his words, then a slow, trembling smile broke across her face. She leaned into him, her head against his chest, the battle fading into silence as the last enemy fled. For the first time since her chains had been broken, she allowed herself to rest, not as a captive, not as a warrior, but as someone who finally belonged. The firelight flickered across their faces, and in that fragile quiet, the vow she had spoken in the market no longer sounded like a bargain. It was a promise, a future waiting to be claimed. Together, scarred and weary, they had survived, and survival was only the beginning.